before I was born, well, I'm told, but I had a brother who was hit by a car and killed, and my mother was 9 months pregnant with my oldest brother, and my sister was alive. And the story goes, she let him walk to school and he was hit by a car and he got killed. And so she had to call my father at work and say, Joey was killed. And I didn't know it was true until one day I was 9 years old. So it's like kind of a long time after, because I was born after that. And I saw a picture of this kid and he looked like my brother Danny, right, who's younger than my sister, but here was this kid Danny looked older than my sister, and all of a sudden this was a reality for me, right? But and I never, something that triggers, my parents, I gotta give them credit for the fact that I didn't know that.
That's
do you know
huge.
What I'm saying?
Yes, that's huge.
I didn't know that he existed until I saw his picture.
They went on with their lives.
Yeah, but it was always thought that, it's like, you didn't tell the kids, and, it wasn't a good thing.
We don't talk about it.
We don't talk about it in our, but I'm thinking, well, that's pretty, from my reality as a kid, it's great.
Let's say one of your children died.
Right.
It's possible for you to keep her alive in all of you, all the days of your life. If there's no sadness, what replaces that has to be something else. So it's remember the time. Oh yeah, I remember the time. I remember how she left. And you just keep her alive with your children, with your grandchildren. She lives. She's not in the grave. You're not in the grave, and it's wonderful because she never ages, and it's fabulous. That's again, no one can die.
Right.
We kill them in our heads.
What I notice with all my kids, and even since they've been babies, well, I don't know that I know this, but let's say that I notice that they have certain behaviors, even before they could talk, and I can tell you what they are. Mm-hmm. Emma just had tremendous tantrums, and she would kick. We didn't even know why.
So you're calling them tantrums,
right?
And that's just an idea.
Right.
Good.
Okay, I got that. But every kid has a different way.
See, with the tantrum thing, let's look at that. It's like, that's what you called it, and that's what you believed it to be. And it's nothing more than it is what it is. It just is whatever you believe it to be. And whatever you believe it to be will stress you out, or it won't. And you can go to the doctor either way. If it seems, like the child's in pain or in some kind of trouble. But you don't have to be tormented yourself with it, other than what you're believing when you attach a story to what's going on. Then as the child gets older and the same behavior continues, mind begins to take that on and catch up with it and use it to identify as. So the mind will give reasons and believe it. And that someone calls a tantrum, and then the child learns to call it a tantrum.
Right. It wasn't that when she didn't know what it was.
Yeah, it was nothing until she became a believer.
Right.
And then as she became a believer, then mind has a reason for everything. It believes it, and it keeps that personality or that identity alive to itself. And it's nothing more than if the child had no mind, was absolutely brain dead, it would appear to be throwing these tantrums because that's what you believe they are. And basically it just is what it is.
So, would you say that aging is a belief?
Well, absolutely.
And time passing is a belief. A thought, right?
A concept. A thought.
But the body seems to age.
If you have a past to compare it to.
Right. That's true. You said that mind is seeking a place to rest. What does that mean?
Well, another way I say it is seeking a home for itself, a place to rest in itself. Because, if you think the thought, for example, I can't do it, the mind immediately travels to find some kind of resolution for that. And all it knows how to do is find examples of why that's true. Mind is brilliant in its seeking for truth. So it thinks, I can't do it. So then it begins to experience all the images and concepts to prove that it can't do it. That's how it keeps the past. That's how it gives the illusion of a past. It doesn't keep it. It just keeps the illusions that people believe the images in their head. And it really looks like a past is real, even though it cannot be. So when mind asks itself, is it true? I can't do it, is it true? Then in that space of don't know, you experience who you are without the thought, I can't do it. Mm-hmm. Mind experiences that, and then options flood in.
Right.
They flood in. But when the mind is busy showing us images and concepts of why we can't do it, those options are not available. So you ask me, what is God? And when we believe we can't do it, for example, that thought becomes our God. And it's all we're worshiping. It's like, I can't do it because. So that is worship. That is devotion. And that takes everything up. And there's no room for anything other than that when mind is in it. So when the mind has the presence to question itself, for example, I can't do it, is it true? Then it stops moving to that polarity if the intention is there.
Right.
And it stops moving into the polarity of can't do it, and all the proof. And it begins to open to something else. And that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And in that, the mind can rest. And is it true? It doesn't matter what stressful thought you apply that to. If the intention's there, if you really want to know the truth, and the intention's there, mind will stop and it will go another direction until eventually it learns its own nature. My short version is the universe is friendly, mind's own nature, friendly, and it lives in that polarity, and in that duality ceases to exist. There's only one, and it's good, and it is its own true nature. There is nothing within it that can grasp anything else. It's totally out of denial. And it is pure, infinite, creative mind. Mm-hmm. Unstuck. It's very exciting. If you think a thought, mm-hmm. Okay, so you just said, uh-huh.
Right.
Okay, where's your proof? Where did it go? Only the thought appearing now exists as proof that uh-huh even existed. So without the thought, where's the proof?
It's not there.
It's not there. And where did that thought go? So actually, even thought doesn't exist. Actually, when I say mind is everything, the truth is, and when you look at it really, even thoughts don't exist. Not only do problems not exist, but neither does mind. Mm-hmm. And I invite everyone not to believe me, but to test it for themselves. Right. All of this. There's nothing I say that I don't. I just invite people not to believe me, please not to believe me, and simply to test it for themselves. Otherwise, words just are taken on as concepts, and the ego just inflates, and nothing really gets done.
And it's the same, right? It's the same.
We just all look wise and smart,
right.
and until it's realized it's just of no value. It's just more denial.
But I say this again. I love that. I love that there's no pressure on me to get more than I get. And not only that, it's more than that for me. It's more than that. Right. I can't, and I shouldn't.
Beautiful. Exactly so. It's like, I can't, therefore I shouldn't.
Right. Well, there you go. I mean, what more could you ask for? Really?
Yeah, what a perfect setup. It is what it is. And no one is more ahead or further behind. It's just all running beautifully.
Right. Love this. I took a test in a woman's magazine. You say, I was waiting in a hair salon. The magazine caught my eye and I opened it at random. The headline said, how good a lover are you? There was a page full of questions. Do you prepare for his arrival? No. Do you put on sexy lingerie? No. Do you try special techniques to please him? No. I added up my numbers at the end and I discovered I had flunked the test. I love that. To their mind, I am a dud. To my mind, I am the perfect lover. Why would I prepare for his arrival? How could I project anything better than Steven? And why would I bother? He is all I want when he walks in the door and in every moment. Do I wear sexy lingerie? That might be fun. And I notice that the thought never occurs to me. I also notice that it's unnecessary. Do I have special techniques to please him? Why would I try to please him? He is already pleased, and I did nothing for it. What were these editors thinking? Love is not doing, nor is making love. Who needs props or techniques when the heart is wide open? The real plan is always the way of it, eliminating the need for any plan I might have. I don't know a thing about pleasing or being pleased. So there's no way I can't be the perfect lover. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's effortless.
The pressure to be hot and lingerie, and well, what's that about?
Well, it's about pleasing yourself. And in that, it's absolutely understandable. If you're not pleased with yourself, then you look for other means to do it that are outside of you.
Right.
But when you're pleased with yourself, if you take off your clothes and someone goes, oh, it's like, how odd they would see me that way. I hope they do better. And it shows you who not to be with.
Oh, you mean like a lover type? Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. You take off your clothes and they say, ew. Uh-huh. Right.
And in all the lingerie, they could go, ew. They could do the same thing, so you may as well be you.
Right.
And I think it's marvelous to do all those things. For some of us, that's the best we have going as far as self-esteem.
You mentioned you went without food for 24 days?
I think it was 29.
29, oh. Why would that?
Well, it was very early after the experience, and I heard people talking about hunger, and I wanted to test it. So it was nothing more than that.
Right,
I wanted to see if I was looking for things that were true, and I couldn't find any. In fact, I learned that hunger is just another concept, and very frightening when food isn't there. So again, that's how mind stays identified as a body. Mind terrified that when the body dies, it has nothing to identify with, therefore it's nothing, it's scattered. Can you imagine being mind, not body?
No.
You'd have to identify as something to appear to exist. So there's mind and there's body. And if we would work on mind the way we work on our body, or be concerned as with mind as we are with body and put that time in on it, it would really shift us into a whole other paradigm. And that's what I'm asking people to do, to bet on the winner. You know, bodies don't make it.
Right.
So work with the mind. You know, it's everything. So I tested hunger, and someone told me that there were people from outer space and Martians, and that they were evil, and I was too free. And some Christians told me I was too free, and evil could get into me, that I wasn't careful, I was too open. I heard all kinds of things from all different traditions and ideas, and I tested them all, and I'm still open.
You know, interesting, you know, you talk about working on your body. You know, I don't really know, the gym has sort of shifted for me. And I still go. There's something about, you know, having to produce a certain look, you know, and I can just go. And even wanting to produce that look, that's okay. You know, it's just, all of it is okay. Do you know what I'm saying? I want to produce that look. I don't. Do I? You know, do I? Yes. Do I? No. But instead of saying I do want to produce the look and I believe it, or I don't want to, or I shouldn't be here, or I should be there, I'm there.
Yeah, instead you just find yourself at the gym or not.
Right. And I'm pumping iron.
Yeah.
And yay.
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's freeing.
Yeah.
No
Well, that's what we do. You know, we're free to come and go. It's only the mind that would say that we're not.
Right.
It's like on the way to the gym. The story could be running, I have to do this, I have to this, or I'm going to do it to look. You know, all the stories running, if you questioned them, you know, who'd you be without your story? Going to the gym.
Right.
You know, so there are two ways to go to the gym.
Right.
One's in peace and one is not. And there are two ways not to go to the gym. And you notice that sometimes you're there, sometimes you're not.
Right.
So it's like the child on Emma with the tantrums. You know, it's all a story. Who would we be without our story? You know, outgrowing the gym and not.
Right.
You know, outgrowing the tantrum and not. It's just is what it is.
Do people worry that without their stories, although I don't know that that's possible anyway, to be without your story, but that there's something going to be missing from them, they'll be boring, or they'll be, you hear that, right?
Mm-hmm. The mind will do anything to keep from losing control. It would be too boring if I did the work. Well, I would question that one. I could lose my world. This is terrifying. That's a good one. You know, question that one. And people who question what they believe, they do lose the world. They lose the world as they understand it to be. And it's only the world of suffering that they lose. They don't lose the other. You know, it just works that way. And it's not that they don't lose the other, it's just a beautiful world that's left. Actually, heaven is here on earth. But because we believe our thoughts about earth, it feels like hell. And so hell is here on earth. Heaven is here on earth. This is paradise, and we're asleep to it. And I'm inviting people to wake up or not.
Right. Wake up or not.
Yeah. But no one can wake them up. You know, these questions are, again, the answers are personal. And they'll surface, you know, what I love is when people, you know, anyone can do this work if their mind is open to it, that they open to it and just let that child's mind just surface.
Right.
And those answers meet the questions, and not to fear it, because, you know, you can take your old beliefs back anytime you want and just take the risk and answer, and have a good life.
Right, right. Who is the work for?
Anyone who is available to answer the questions. It's ageless. If you take a child, they think, oh, I did it wrong. You take someone on their deathbed, oh, I did it wrong. You know, there's no young and old, they're only concepts believed. And anyone can answer these simple questions if their mind is open to it.
You know, I've done workshops and maybe thinking I got somewhere, whatever. And it's available to that person too.
Yes.
And it's available to the person who still does the workshops with the other people. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
And so I just think that's important for people to know, because, you know, my question would be, okay, I work with X teacher, which is fine, you know, the way I see it is, it's great because you can work with X teacher and still, because the 4 questions are not, it's about inquiry.
Yeah.
So I see it as harmonious.
It absolutely is.
I do.
I mean, there's no philosophy here, there's no religion here, there's nothing you have to do here, you don't even have to answer the questions. There are no requirements. And anyone open to it can do it. It's mind's high play. But, you know, why wouldn't, you know, if people say, I'm going to this teacher, and I think, well, of course you would. You know, you like that teacher, why wouldn't you?
Right.
You know, it would be like being with a friend, someone you grow with and learn from. You know, that is a healthy thing.
And so if you come to when you ask the 4 questions, you end up leaving the teacher, so what? You know?
Yeah, well, you could end up leaving the teacher anyway.
Right, well, that's true too.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you know, it's just a story we're telling
right, that's true too.
as life appears to go on.
Right, that's very good.
It's like someone walks to the teacher and they'll do all the becauses and all the reasons, but if they questioned it, they're just moving on.
Right.
It appears. No one has to be loyal to the work because it isn't anything. It's 4 questions and they don't even say answer me, so it's not even a thing.
Do people sometimes, because that is hard to get, and I don't blame people because I can get it, you know, do people sometimes misunderstand that?
Sure, because they see it as a thing, and it's not.
Right.
But of course they would, because I call it the work, so it sounds like a thing even though it's active. And I don't call it the work for nothing. This is an ongoing process, because mind is ongoing until it's not.
Right.
And once it's at peace, it comes to see that it's not. And
but
then life begins.
Right. And so it's called the work.
The work.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, you know, the work, just in case people, you know, if someone thinks, let's say I did the work and I thought, I am enlightened, and, you know, if you have the work, how can that be? You would have to question that also.
Right.
So it doesn't leave any room for higher or lower, or they're wiser than I am. The questions will not allow that.
Right.
If you answer them. It leaves all of us equally. It leaves one mind balancing itself out. And as your mind balances, whatever you hear, in other words, as you continue to learn what is true for you and what is not, the whole world shifts in that, because you're able to hear and be a part of reality rather than separate from it, and it all begins to make sense.
Why do you emphasize writing down the questions as opposed to just doing them in your head?
Well, you mean the concepts that we're working with?
Right.
I ask people to identify their stressful thoughts and put it on paper. And that way the mind is stopped. The stressful concepts you're believing are stopped. They're there. And your mind can go on and say, I really didn't mean that, I meant something else. Doesn't matter what it did, what it thinks, there it is. So undeniably, you know, who thought it, who wrote it, well, that was you. That's it. You know it. And no matter what your mind does with it, there it is. Right. It can deny it, but there it is. So then it's stopped. People have wanted to stop their mind for centuries and centuries and centuries, and they never knew how. So there it is, stopped. Mind on paper, stopped. Bring it out of mind into the physical world that mind imagines that it exists. Put it on paper and then question it using the 4 questions and turn around. And no matter what happens with other concepts, just notice, write them somewhere else, and come back to that one. Do all 4 questions and turn around. And no turnarounds without the questions first, because the questions, the turnarounds become habitual and ineffective without the 4 questions.
Right.
Not that that's not helpful, but eventually the work doesn't work. Why? Because you're not answering the questions. You're taking a shortcut, which again, it's okay. It's just that if it stops working for you, it's because you have stopped working it.
Right.
So the 4 questions and the turnaround, and you find 3 examples for the turnaround, so that the mind has an opportunity to see how the opposites, or if the opposites, are as true or truer. And they always are. They always are to the open mind, and open mind, open heart. Closed mind, closed hearts. People who harm themselves and other human beings have closed minds. It's not their fault. They're simply believing their thoughts. When I go into penitentiaries, hardcore prisons, work with lifers, it's simple to see why they're in there when I understand what they were believing when it happened. And I was sharing with an interviewer from Israel Today earlier this morning that an American in an Israeli prison for murdering his girlfriend, sentenced for life. And he sent me a thank you note. There are some people there that take the work into prisons all over the place. Muslims, Jews, they're just doing it in Israel. It's wonderful to see what they're doing with the work there. But he was thanking me for the peace that he has found. He murdered his girlfriend because she didn't think he was enough. She didn't think he was worthy, on and on and on. And he murdered her. And he became so angry. So he was doing the work in prison with my friend Arik, and he found that his girlfriend, he had no proof she ever believed that. She never said that to him. She never gave him cause that she believed it. He was simply believing it about himself and projecting it onto her. So when we believe just a simple thought like, she doesn't think I'm worthy, or she doesn't think I'm enough, a simple thought like that, when you believe it and the mind gives you all the proof, it's not a little thing. When a person writes down, they identify and write their thoughts on paper, especially people who are depressed or angry. If they would just question their thoughts, oh my goodness, their identities would shift so quickly that they wouldn't have to do prison. They don't have to do that kind of time. And those of us that are not in prison, are we locked in to the prison of our minds? And people don't like to be locked up in prison because what they're locked up with is their thoughts. And other than that, prison's great. If you
I was just going to say.
Yeah, you put a Buddhist monk in there and lock him in, and he says thank you.
Right.
And I walk through prisons. There's in San Quentin. There's one of the old places they call Broadway, because it's so full that sometimes they have to just pack them in. I mean, they don't even have cells, and they're just all over the floor on mattresses. It's really quite something. And so I'm in there, and I hear, they lock someone up. You hear the door slam, and you look up, and it's just layers of, just tiers of rows of cells. And you hear one shut. I heard one shut way up above to the right, and he started screaming. And then another one goes off, and another one goes off. And what's happening is they're believing their thoughts. That is the only reason a person would even scream. I mean, again, look what they're locked up with. And there's nothing available to them to shift the mind. like with a cigarette or shopping, credit cards, sex. There's nothing. They're just stuck with this and nothing to do with it.
No credit cards.
And there they are. You know, the thought, I need to get out of here. That is torture when you can't get out and you believe it. I can't live in here. This will kill me. That is torture when there's no way out and you believe it. You believe what you're thinking. So now, with the work in prisons, these prisoners are becoming freer than people on the outside of prison. And I love that because it's true rehabilitation when we don't believe our stressful thoughts, the thoughts that would harm ourselves or another human being. Those are the stressful ones, and or the thoughts that project others, our own suffering because he, she, etc. When these prisoners, the ones that will get out eventually, and some of them do get out, whether they're rehabilitated or not. They just convince people, the parole board, that they're okay, and they believe it themselves, and they're very convincing. But the thoughts that put them in there in the first place, they're still running. They still believe them, and they find 12 steps there. They find religion there. They find God there. They find all kinds of wonderful things. And they feel so elevated, and they feel so rehabilitated, and so fine, and their whole body shift. They look so different because they have God, we'll say. Okay, so they're let out of prison, and if their mind doesn't focus on that, then what happens is what they believed that put them in there in the first place, it overrides everything.
Right.
I'm not enough. No one cares. I need a partner. No one understands me. I want, I should, they shouldn't. And they end up behind bars again, and someone gets hurt. They get hurt, and someone gets hurt. So until people know how to question their minds, we can see through history that nothing is changing. And then when we look at the people that are not in prison, we're only out of prison because we didn't get caught. But we're all running this stuff and passing it on to our children and each other. But we're justified. And everyone behind bars is justified because that's how the mind works. Whatever we do, the mind will defend it and justify it. And that's where the war begins. Defense is the first act of war. So if someone says, Katie, you did it, my first thought is they're right. Now let me check it out, rather than they're wrong. Let me check it out. Because, why would someone lie? They wouldn't lie about it. And if I can't see where I did it, then I'm perfectly open to understanding why they believe that I did it. Look at what they're thinking. So no one's wrong when they say, Katie, you did it. So there's no war in my life. There cannot be, as far as I know.
I mean, I can get that I'm like the prisoner,
Well, yeah,
I mean, I can get that.
Anyone that gets bored is in big trouble,
Anyone who gets
bored is in big trouble. And by that, I mean, they don't know how to deal with their thoughts. They don't know how to deal with what they're thinking. So they have to do something to shift the mind.
Right.
Because they don't like what they're thinking. They're not bored. They're not liking what they think. So not knowing how to deal with that, or even recognizing that it's their thinking, they think it's life, and it's not. It's their thoughts about life. That's how lost we are as a human race. As a mind, they have to shift that. They have to shift it, and we do it in the most amazing ways. We call people we don't like. We marry people we don't like simply because we don't want to be alone, simply because we fear. It's a very, and then wonder why we're bitter, and then we blame each other. It's, it's quite a circle.
Wow.
And, not everyone, but the people who don't live in ways that I've just described, live in other ways. Anyone that is bored, confused, angry, sad, it's just absolutely unnecessary if their mind is open to the work. And it is necessary until the mind is open to that.
Right. People hold you as whatever, I don't know.